Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Villablanca, and we are here for Fin TV, one of our podcast sessions. This is a really exciting podcast because we're going to be talking to two very important people with very interesting opinions on diversity in general. We're going to be talking about supply chain. We're going to be talking about the future of work, which is very exciting. So I'm going to introduce you to two ladies, Carina Tyralla, who is Vice President of Global Supply Chain Management of Tom Tailor Group, and Annika Tibbe, who is the Supply Chain Director, Cargill Starches, Sweeteners and Texturizers Europe. Welcome to Fin TV. Welcome to the podcast. Why don't you both tell us a little bit about yourselves so far and why you're interested in this topic?
Very good. So I'm Annika Tibbe. I'm the supply chain director in Cargill for the Sweeteners Starches and Texturizers business. But I have not been here for for such a long time. I actually my background is from Procter & Gamble, where I made my career always in supply chain, and where I really discovered how great supply chain could be and how it can become a competitive advantage for many, many companies. So I learned my passion of supply chain through Procter & Gamble, and I'm now very happy that I can apply that in a business that is not so sophisticated yet here in Cargill. And where I'm really passionate about is diversity, but not female men only, but also how we think about nationalities, age diversity. How come that sometimes people that make the decisions about technology are men that are typically older or longer in the organization, and well, we should have maybe some younger folks that rock the boat a little bit. So I'm really passionate about the topic, but in the whole perspective or the whole spectrum of it.
Right. Thank you, Annika. Thank you very much. Now, Carina?
Sure. As a big hello from my side. I'm actually passionate about supply chain through my entire career. The last 2.5 years I spent at the Tom Tailor Group, as you said, Maria, in the role of the Global Supply Chain Management Lead. Prior to that, I actually used to work for the Adidas Group in all sorts of different supply chain functions. And before that, I even used to be a forwarding agent. So really, since I left school, my life is purely supply chain, which I'm passionate about. In terms of diversity, I can only echo what Annika just said. My biggest, best experiences really I have made when I used to work in very diverse teams. And I do believe that, as you said, it's not just about gender. That's just one piece of it, really. It's about the experience of the people. It's about the different skills that they actually bring. And at the end of the day, it's about the different opinions that they actually share throughout the work that you do with them. And this is where I personally used to be most successful in the teamwork that we actually did.
I think it's a very good way to start this session. We all came together because at our recent supply chain event in Dusseldorf, you were both on a very interesting panel that we initially titled Gender Diversity, but quickly evolved into a wider conversation about diversity and about the importance of having diverse teams. In your experience, and I'm sure you've worked both individually and within teams, within your businesses, maybe if you guys could answer a little bit about the benefits of diversity in teamwork.
Yeah. So let me give you an example about diversity in thoughts. For example, we have typically in supply chain a lot of engineers, right? That think, in the boxes and want to work via a particular process, actions, and but now I currently, for example, have somebody in my team that comes with a background of sales. And it gives a completely different perspective to the discussions we have about, putting the customer first. What is it that the customer wants? So for me, that type of diversity also in profiles, MBTI profiles, is very key to get to completely different outcomes than you would originally think. And that really opens for me a lot of doors, and making sure that we are looking at the whole list of opportunities versus only what we as engineers think is what the customer needs.
Maybe just a thought on that, because you said there were people from different skill sets really joining the team. I can actually echo that. We just recently implemented SAP at Tom Tailor, which of course is a very technology-driven project. And what we realized was that no one alone could actually tackle that challenge. And what we did is we called that a leading change initiative. And we basically asked the senior leader management team across the company, no matter what they would do, So we had HR people, we had sales people, we had finance and controlling people, we had supply chain people, we had transformation people. They all were there. And basically each of us then was asked to tackle a different work stream. And we ended up that someone from HR was actually leading a master data work stream. And when we started the project, of course, there was big question marks in their faces, and they said, well, we don't even know what master data means. And we then said, yes, and it's great that you don't, because you will actually tackle it just perfectly. And at the end of the day, this leading change initiative really enabled us then to kind of transform the entire company to get everyone onboarded onto the project. And I think it was a huge success actually afterwards.
So diversity is, I think, works well towards team building and towards the kind of work that is required with teams. Do you all think that over the last 10, 15 years, supply chain has evolved, maybe business models have evolved that therefore require different thinking?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm a true believer that right now, I think supply chain is probably one of the most disruptive areas across all industries, really. And you said it quite rightly, I think, Maria, the world around us is just constantly changing. I mean, no matter if you live a project or if you have to deal with day-to-day operations, there's always something unexpected happening. From a supply chain point of view, maybe who would have believed that such a big carrier as Hanjin actually would go bankrupt? No one could have seen that. I don't know, all the challenges we have across Asia, and then we do our projects in an agile implementation method. So everything is just quick. And I do think that coming out of that, you actually do need those different opinions. And at the end of the day, I think the mix between kind of the traditional way of doing things and having the experience and the calmness is super important. At the same time, you need the new thinking and people who are actually up to date on what happens and that are kind of bold enough as well to take decisions without maybe having the business case ready until the third decimal place. I think that is exactly what will make it successful and what will be the competitive advantage at the end of the day.
Yeah. You know, indeed, think about the new companies, you know, that didn't exist 10 years ago. What makes them so great? And typically what we see now, it is because of their supply chain. The way they handle, you know, the interface with customers, it's easy, hassle-free. You can, you know, it is their supply chain that I think is their competitive advantage. In the end, all of the salespeople are even cut out, right, on Amazon. I mean, who is selling it? It's the website. It's the fact that you can deliver, order something online, you can track it, you get it the next day. So there, I think I'm very excited because, you know, for example, the company I work for now, we are not there yet, and I think that's where we can really tap into a whole list of opportunities. And for that, we need diverse people who do not think like 10, 15 years ago, because everything has changed. Everything is, you know, we look at about how we work on our apps, and also for that, you need people that know how good looks like. So yes, I think only with diversity and getting that in, age diversity, international diversity, we can build the best supply chain that there is.
You said something very interesting there in terms of, both of you did actually, with regards to the supply chain industry and where it is today, how it compares to 10, 15 years ago. There are different methodologies, right? There are different types of thinking. We as consumers have changed, businesses have changed dramatically. We talked about this when we were in Düsseldorf, which was, does supply chain have an image issue? You know, is supply chain one of those things, one of those industries, or one of those professions that is considered to be a hands-on, warehousey type of profession? Number one, is that what the profession looks like today? I mean, I'm talking to both people that work within this industry. And two, if it isn't, why is it that is the perception?
So on the first one, maybe it isn't clearly. So I think the times where you would actually kind of picture supply chain as a warehousing job, those are definitely gone. And I'm even not sure if they were always there, to be very honest with you. So I think the perception, I do agree. I do think that actually the moment you start talking about supply chain, you get a lot of questions. So a lot of people actually would ask you, well, what exactly does that mean? And then, of course, there's the famous sentence, we'll make sure that we deliver the product at the right time, at the right cost to the customer and the consumer out there. However, I do think that very rarely, if you're not used to have done work within the supply chain industry, it's quite tough to actually anticipate what our day-to-day job looks like. And it's a great question on why it's a perception that actually supply chain is still a bit dusty, because exactly as Annika just said, I mean, it's all around apps, it's all around data, it's all around different geographies really, and it's different challenges. It's a global task really that we need to come up with, kind of connecting the dots within minutes or hours. And I don't know, to be honest with you, why there is still the perception. I think maybe we're not doing a great job in recruiting yet. Maybe we actually need to go out there more often and kind of explain on what we exactly do and how that could look like. I don't think it's easy.
No, it's completely right. People, if you ask in many areas, people think if you talk supply chain, they think it's trucks and warehouses and moving product from A to B. But it's all about the technology that's around it, and it needs connecting the dots in seconds, where you can provide customers with their product. And the whole, I think, we are not marketing people. And that is something that, we need to market our business a bit better, because it is about all of this fancy stuff as well, right? The whole track and trace, but also the whole ordering platform, and the fact that you can connect the dots within a couple of seconds. So yeah, we have some work ahead of us to share to people that it is much, much more than just trucks and warehouses.
Well, that's what I was saying in terms of an image issue. When and I'm not within supply chain itself properly like you guys are, but when I have to explain regularly, what is supply chain? What does that mean? And then unfortunately, either you get down to the simple explanation of it's moving goods from place to place, that elicits an idea in people's head that it is trucks and trains and logistics and so forth. But as you said, I think it was Annika, that we're in a very disruptive age right now. The profession is very disruptive. What can we do, or what can the profession do to attract top talent?
I personally do believe that the earlier you get them, the better. So I do think that we could actually do a lot more work directly at universities or schools even, and try to really, with very simple use cases, explain what we do. And I'm also a big believer of actually bringing people in for a short period of time to kind of show them on the job on what is it that we're actually doing. Because at the end of the day, I mean, theory is just theory. The moment you get a student in, for example, maybe a thesis or maybe just a kind of 2-week session in the company with a small project, which is kind of end-to-end setup. I do think this is one of the big challenges to overcome then really, in order to get those talents attracted. So I think that's one. And I think two is actually, from a recruiting point of view, get actually the internal HR people as a business partner involved in the things that we're doing, because that's, from a company point of view, of course, where things start. So the moment the HR person, who at the end of the day is actually recruiting the talents out there, they understand that it's so much more than just moving boxes and driving trucks. I think that is a huge benefit, because they will kind of picture that, of course, the moment they speak to the candidates, and they will give it a completely different story. So I think that's two things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with the fact also that our recruiters, that we need to onboard them exactly about what supply chain is, because if they don't understand it, we also get the wrong profiles. But to get a bigger pool of people, it's exactly at university probably where we need to share, okay, what kind of cool things we're doing, get them on an internship or whatever, to see that it is not about trucks, and that we are about all digitalization and indeed becoming a value creator for the company versus a cost center.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much innovation taking place in supply chain right now. We're talking regularly about digital transformation. We're talking about AI, machine learning. We're talking about the different expectations of consumers influencing the way that business is working. You know, there's never been a more exciting time, I think, to get into supply chain. Let's go back to the diversity in general. I mean, so once we're talking about an image issue, you know, we're talking about the fact that it's difficult to recruit people because of this image issue. But let's say we overcome that. Once we actually get diversity into the business, whether it is gender diversity, race diversity, age diversity, how do we retain top talent in organizations?
Well, if you know, and that is something that I think is something that is personal to every person as well. We need to tailor it almost to the person itself. What I want in my career is not something that my neighbor probably wants in my career. So what I think is we need to lay out very clearly what are the options. What is actually a supply chain, career path that you can have. And it's also different, I think, for every company, bigger or smaller. But I think laying out the options and sharing, okay, what you can do is something very important. And I've been reading that, you know, some companies now say that the supply chain folks are going to be the CEO of the future. And I truly believe that. And I think that's an exciting outlook for the ones who would want to become a CEO.
Yeah, I agree on that. I think the dialogue is actually key to success here as well. It's all about talking to each other rather than kind of talking about each other. And I do actually think the experiences I made was that sometimes people actually struggle themselves to tell you what they want. So if you ask a question and you sit down and actually speak to your team members and you kind of mapping out a development plan, even for them, it's sometimes super difficult to grab that. So I think one key is actually to speak to them, to openly address that, you know what, we believe you have potential. And let's think about the different options and kind of the pieces of the puzzle, how they can fit together and how you can as well try and error really on what you're really strong in and where you really would love to work in. And I do think a good mix of different experiences is probably key. But I agree with you as well, Annika. I think at the end of the day, we also have to admit that not everyone wants to be the new CEO of the future. So sometimes for people, it's just fine if they have actually a solid work, which maybe does not change on a regular basis. And they can still be a talent in that area that they actually work in. So I do agree that I think it needs to be tailored and it needs to be constantly checked in really. Is this still what you want? Or have you actually coming out of the recent experience potentially have shifted your mind as well? So I think it's a lot of work. It will as well require a lot of attention from a leadership point of view really, because this is true people management rather than operational day-to-day stuff that we need to do. And I think the key is that we actually find the time on both sides really to have those conversations and to then be as well flexible and just try it out, because maybe the solution is not there yet and maybe no one has actually tried it before.
Yeah. No, and I think what is great about the supply chain function is that we're close to a lot of other functions. So, you know, we are very close to operations because we work with them to get the capacity, if there are downtimes, etc. We are very close also to the financial part because we need to financialize our forecast. We're very close to sales because everything we do in the end turns around the customers, and we work with them on forecasts. We get customer complaints, or we work with them on time in full. So I think as supply chain, you're really the spider in a web. And I see sometimes people that come from other functions to supply chain because they like it, but also some people that come from supply chain and go to a sales function or to a finance function. What I think is also great, because from supply chain you have that kind of helicopter view where you can look at all kinds of areas in the organization and get a kind of sneak preview on what happens there. So I think also supply chain is a kind of an engine for talent for the rest of the organization.
Well, what I was going to say then is that it then works really well when you have diverse teams, because if you've got that kind of diversity within the function anyway, in terms of the ability to see different types of areas, whether it's sales or, you know, operations or what have you, if you bring people to the team with different points of view, they will then add tremendous value, won't they?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And that's also why it's good if of talent from other departments comes to supply chain to get indeed that different perspective.
Do you think that over the last 10, 15 years, or at least within your professional careers within supply chain, have you seen the industry change? The reason I ask this is I've been putting together supply chain events and working in supply chain for a long time as well. And I remember being at the beginning probably one of maybe only 2 or 3 women within these events. Now I'm noticing there's more diversity. We're still not there, but are you noticing a change?
I think yes. So if I look back actually in the companies I used to work in, as well as in the teams actually, I can actually say that they have been pretty diverse. So we had all sorts of age groups, we had all sorts of geographies actually joining, we had different experiences, and we had a good mix in terms of gender diversity as well. And I do think kind of the spider in the web picture that Annika just painted, I do think that that is as well more and more actually coming to life, because a lot of people actually just from their personal motivation like to get different perspectives on the topic, and they realize, I think, themselves on how important that is in order to picture how actually your interfaces would now act and how different consumers would feel about whatever change you're about to do. So I do think that we made already a big step on that. I think sometimes we just need to be a little bit more brave even and even try out more, because every now and then you still come back to these traditional approaches where people actually would want to stay in their companies for 20 years on the same job, and they don't realize how important it is to get those different perspectives. So yeah, I think we've come away. I think daily life actually shows it already. However, there's still huge opportunity out there.
Yeah. No, indeed. So I agree. We came already from somewhere, and but there is still a path to go. But the fact that companies now start to recognize that supply chain is important for them, and that they need to have that talent, and we see younger talent, including females, rising, and that is very nice to see the leaders of the future. So I think I agree, we are on the right track.
We talk a lot in this podcast about the future of supply chain and the future of the industry. We talk a lot about digital transformation. I want to bring it back to the future of work. I can imagine how 15 years ago, the idea of working from home was not necessarily something that was talked about even, or even encouraged. Whereas now, how has the industry changed in terms of the function that will then change the future of work, in your opinion?
Well, if I think about the supply chain of the future, and that's maybe not very encouraging for people who want to work in supply, but I think we should run the supply chain with just a couple of people that are focusing on, key decisions that we cannot make by robots, artificial intelligence, or data. I mean, that is how I think. Well, that's long term. But in the end, our systems will be all, optimized, integrated, automated, and we will have artificial intelligence who makes decisions. Hopefully our warehouses will be automated, our trucks will be completely automated as well. So that's how I really see it. And that what you need is then also a different level of workforce, right? So you need people that can really, make these tough decisions on the spot and connect the dots that our sophisticated systems will not be able to do. So I see actually the level of the workforce going up in the next years, because we will have all kinds of tools that will take away the repetitive work, the order entry, all of the stuff that actually is not so adding value, and we will focus on a lot of value adding activities that can deliver more value to our customers.
I agree, and I think in terms of future of work, Maria, as well, I think, technology obviously has come a long way as well. So today, no matter where you are, you can actually always access your emails, you can always look at your apps, you're always connected already. So I think in terms of the enablers are already existing. I think sometimes it's the mindset and in traditional companies especially, which does not yet exist, that gets us down to a level of trust that of course is required in order to do the things that potentially need to be done. And I think one big lever to come, likely from my point of view, is actually kind of in the light of co-creation and co-work. So I think we used to be in a period, especially in supply chain, where we wanted to be top secret, and we kind of did the things we thought we needed to do within our own four walls. And I think we're now already entering actually kind of the phase of a lot more open dialogue, where companies would even reach out to their main competitors in the industry and try to figure out, you know what, we've actually come across that hurdle. We noticed that you have done something similar. Are you open to actually have a conversation about that? How we jointly potentially can learn from that and get better. So I think we're already there again. However, not a lot of companies do that. And I think the entire world of co-creation and co-work will be a huge lever for the future again, which will open up a lot of silos that we still have. And then again, hopefully bring a positive aspect to the reputation of supply chain as well.
So collaboration seems to be a very important part of working within the supply chain of today and the supply chain of the future. What kind of skills do you think that the new supply chain professionals will need to have?
Well, I think they will. The first one is great stakeholder management, influencing skills, because I think as I explained before, as we are the spider in the web, that comes with a big responsibility. We see a lot of things before others will see it. So I think we need to we need to make sure that we are very good communicators in translating in what we see into decisions, in priorities that need to be taken by people who would maybe not always see that because they're not there yet. So I think that is a skill that we would definitely require.
Yeah, and I think the other one is listen is a very important skill actually, and then the light of that is be able to ask the right questions. Because to your point, Annika, in terms of business partnership, I totally agree. However, sometimes your business partner does not really know what is required in order to solve the problem. And human beings always intend to kind of provide a solution already. That solution, however, may not solve the problem. So I think the communication and influence skills in the light of ask the right questions and don't give up, even if the question actually may sound totally stupid, until you personally think you have now understood where the key issue lays, is one of the top things. And then the moment you have taken the decision and understood what needs to be done, I think you need a bit of boldness and breadth in order to kind of potentially fight the windmills and just get this decision across anyone who needs to actually support you on that. So you need to be a bit of self-confidence in order to drive that forward.
So a good communicator, a good listener, someone with the ability to think quickly on their feet. It doesn't necessarily mean, that it has to be someone from an engineering background or from a STEM background. It could be anybody from any kind of background, really, which I think has changed a lot in how it was 10, 15 years ago. What advice would you give to the supply chain director today who is looking to build a diverse team in terms of retaining talent, or recruiting talent, let's start there, and retaining talent?
I think number one is at the moment you actually recruit the talent, I think again, get out of your own comfort zone and don't necessarily take the person that is like you, because that's again a human thing. We always like to be we like to have people around us that are similar to us. And I think during recruitment, that's always the biggest challenge. The moment you actually find someone who maybe is a bit special, you may actually think, ooh, that is very special. I'm not so sure. I think take actually take the candidate and give them a chance, because usually there's something great that will actually come out of that. I think that's the first one, get out of your own comfort zone. And in terms of retainment, I think the advice to the supply chain director from my side would be take the time in order to spend time with your team members. It is super difficult with all the things we have going on a day-to-day basis. However, witnessing on how they develop, witnessing on how they act in different meetings, and asking them and provide feedback so that you actually are the coach that they potentially need, is very important and will make sure that you actually get to whatever you needed to go.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, typically when we recruit and we say we need this and this and this as capabilities, but potential, attitude, passion, people that really are open to learn and moldable, that is something I would definitely, look for. And what you also say, look for diversity in the team. Don't get all the same profiles in the team because they will all say the same stuff. So you need sometimes a rebel to get more out of the team, of course in a positive way, right? So but it can push the team to think a little bit out of the box. And then indeed to retain it, it's all about communication, being transparent, talking about what the future can be, what do they want, what is the options in the company, and I think that's the most important, open communication about expectations.
I think with regards to trying to bring in new talent as well, what issues do you think that we have to overcome in order to try to attract people from diverse backgrounds? Issues that perhaps at the moment we have with the industry itself. Do you think we're going into the right places to find people? Are we going to traditional places to find people? Should we be looking elsewhere? What can we do as professionals? What can you do as supply chain directors to try to find talent from different diverse backgrounds?
I think the one is that you were touching on earlier, Maria. It's really the future of work and the flexibility at work. I think that is sometimes a showstopper, no matter if it is location or if it is working hours. I mean, if you're looking for a talent who has a family that potentially lives abroad and they can't take the children out of school, offering those people actually a day or two working from home makes a huge difference. So I think the flexibility of work is one. I think the second one is actually as well the environment that they will work in, no matter if it's actually their working space or if it is the technology they are getting to use. I think we underestimate those things, especially for young people. So offering a young talent actually an iPhone and a Mac makes a huge difference comparing to offering him or her a desktop where they should work from in an office that is actually ugly. So I think we totally underestimate those things. And in terms of corporate identity and our brand values, I think kind of touching them by their feelings and their emotions makes a huge difference as well. So I think, back to Annika, probably we're not good in marketing those things. I think we need to, in order to actually show them what great things they will be able to be achieved and to be able to influence if they would actually join the team.
Yeah, providing meaningful jobs, I would almost say, right? So if you give them the environment, but where they really feel they can make a difference to the values that matter to them. So if we are in a company that works on sustainability, I mean, we need to make sure that employees understand that. But also then, if we give them an iPhone, but then they need to manually type orders from one system to the other, that is not what I call meaningful jobs. So I think the technology in the future of supply chain will only help to provide more meaningful jobs that people will really feel that they can impact something, because they will be working on exception management, on really collaboration with customers, but also with the other functions. And that is why I think supply chain is such an exciting place to be, because we are working with everybody and connecting the dots and adding value.
I think I'm going to circle back to the same issue, which is the image issue. I mean, speaking to both of you, I get excited about the supply chain function, but how do we communicate that effectively to the world, not just to people within our own businesses? How do we communicate effectively the fact that supply chain is so exciting right now? And do you think, well, I was going to say the question is probably, are your companies or are the companies in general communicating the importance of supply chain?
I don't think that all companies understand it yet. And I think that's also why it is difficult. Also, companies need to understand how we can drive value versus being a cost center. And I think it starts with that. But in the company that these people that are in supply chain get important jobs, so people see, okay, this is not the marketing person anymore that becomes the CEO, but it is now the supply chain person that can make it. So, and then I hope, on talking so passionately about it, in the business, but also here on this forum, but also when we go out to universities, then we can get some of that enthusiasm to pass. But it's something that you need to repeat and repeat and repeat, I think.
And I think learning from the best in parentheses is probably a good advice here. I mean, if we look at people or companies like Amazon, they make a great job in exactly that. So if you look at Amazon, what they actually do in terms of their supply chain activities, that is amazing. Are they perfect? Probably not. I'll bet if you actually look on the spend that they have within these areas, that's a different conversation to have. However, in terms of the competitive advantage that supply chain brings, that is the perfect example to look at. And they do a great job in promoting that, actually. And I think if we actually learn from that and figure out on all the little bits and pieces that they actually do, if we just watch ourselves maybe for a week on how often we kind of get connected to that and how often we'll actually realize that, we will as well be able to, to agree on certain things that we need to do in order to be more vocal around the future, really.
I think it's the trouble that every executive has, isn't it? Which is, how do you run your day-to-day business? How do you run, with the craziness that you're dealing with, the issues, because everybody will have issues that you're overcoming, whilst at the same time doing the really important things that you're passionate about, that remind you as to why you're in this industry. What parting advice would you give to your fellow supply chain directors to help drive this topic forward?
Well, I think the first one is probably never give up, because exactly as you said, you need to perform and transform at the same point in time. I think the second one is actually be authentic in everything that you do. Because going out there and trying to convince someone of something you may not even believe in is not a great thing to do. So if you're not convinced that this is the right time to have those conversations, I think you need to go back to the root cause and fix that first. And then with bright shoulders, lots of simple examples, go out there and keep communicating, identify the key influencers, no matter if it's internal or if it's external actually, and just go out there and talk about the great things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and something I would like to add is also just to your audience. If you talk to a business leadership team, you should make sure that you convey a message that is, linked to what the business wants. If you talk to a university, you should convey a different message. So adapt your message on how great it is to the audience, so you can really get the whole buy-in.
I think also one of the key things to do is to point out the people that are doing well, that are leading by example, having diversity, within your teams and propelling, putting those people forward and putting them up into the spotlight to make sure that other people see that there is an opportunity here, no matter what you look like, what kind of background you come from. You may not be a traditional supply chain person, but yet you probably are bringing some great ideas to the table. In that note, thank you very much to both of you for joining us. Clearly, you're doing some very interesting work, and you're both passionate about supply chain. And I think hopefully together we can all bring forward the attention that the industry needs in order to attract and keep top talent. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate your being on the show, and hopefully we'll see you very soon at one of our next events. Thank you very much for everything, Carina, Annika. Thank you.